flips, turns, dives, and how to find an awesome coach. Hosted by Brian Welter and Tyler Kearns. Holding water is where competitive swimming is learned.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Holding Water presented by Commit Swimming. We're excited to have you guys join us again today. We've got a fantastic guest and I think a great show for you guys planned for today. Brian, what's going on, buddy?
Hey, not too much. Might be a football game I care about later. I'm not sure.
They talking about Bucks and the Packers? Is that the one?
Yeah, that one.
That's the one.
But no, yeah, just hanging out. We didn't have a meet this weekend. That was nice. We actually had a normal week of practice, high school districts for this weekend, so we don't have any more of that nonsense to worry about, which is nice. Kids swam pretty well, it looked like, so that's good.
It's interesting. I was talking to Megan Aisting from Now at Swim Mac, who's going to be our guest next week on the show. I was talking to Megan yesterday, and they had a meet up in Charlotte, and we were talking just about, how many meets people are having right now, and it feels like, every other weekend we're at a swim meet. And, what are you really seeing from your kids and your families at a swim meet? So what are you guys seeing at swim meets from you guys? Are you seeing some consistency? Are you seeing some good performances, or are you seeing some people who are getting tired of racing?
We're pretty good as far as we have spread. I think our coaches are more tired than our kids are because we've spread it out to where we have kids at a meet this weekend, different kids at a meet the next weekend, different kids at a meet the next weekend. So our kids aren't seeing that much racing, but the coaches are starting to get a little bit beat up because we're at a meet every weekend, it seems like, and it gets tough. And the other part of it is trying to keep the other kids in the water when you're trying to train. I mean, I got kids that are training for tags, kids are training for North Texas Age Group Champs, and when you're out every weekend for a meet, you almost have to enter them in the meet just to get them some water time. So that's kind of a tough thing.
Coaches,
ready to bring on our guest here?
Yeah, hold on real quick. Coaches, if you guys are out there, throw some comments in the chat if you have questions for Brian or myself or for our guest, John, today. Love to answer any of those. Want to keep this active. And just want to let you guys know before we bring John on, we are, as I said earlier, sponsored by Commit Swimming. For those of you guys who do not know, Commit Swimming software helps you manage your team's training. We've got a picture of their website on the screen right now. Commit is trusted by thousands of coaches around the world, elite training centers, NCAA teams, swim clubs, high schools in 89 different countries. Use Commit to write their workout. When these coaches are asked about their experience with Commit, it's clear teams change for the better when they start using Commit. Go to commitswimming.com today to learn more and sign up for your free trial. You'll be blown away by the power and simplicity of Commit. And if you look up at the top right, there's an icon that says try for free. If you click on that, you can go in and sign up and get yourself a free trial period and get to experience all the power that Commit has to it. It's a great program. I've really, really enjoyed my experience with Commit. So thank you to those guys for sponsoring the show and allowing us to keep talk about swimming. So Brian, if you want to introduce today's guest.
Guys, we got to get it from 89 countries to 90. 90 just sounds better.
I think I saw on there it said 92 now. I want to say it's 92 on the website. So need to update that in the read. But yeah, it's been great.
So our guest this week is a guy I met him at the National Age Group Summit a couple years ago. He did a talk that I really took something out of, and we're going to talk a little bit about that today. But he's head coach at York YMCA. Took over that when Michael left, and he's done a great job. John Nelson, come on, buddy.
All right, thanks.
Hey, John.
Very glad to be here.
John, man. Good to see you, and great to have you on, man. It's I enjoyed our time out at the what is it, the finish line?
Yes, exactly.
And we had a good time out there, and that's the age group summit's actually one of the really good things USA Swimming does, and I think it was a good time for us, and I definitely got a lot out of it. So we'll talk a little bit about that later. We want to get into the main set now.
Yeah, let's get a chance to go through. John, you take us through a workout real quick. All right, we're going to load up a workout. And John, if you want to just take us through it, if Brian and I jump in, we may have some questions. Coaches, if you're out there and you're watching, I see Mike jumping in there. Feel free to throw in a comment, and we'll try to get to it so that John can answer any questions you guys have. All right, John, go ahead, man.
All right. Yeah, super. So first of all, I love your intro video. You guys do that. I forgot when. It started happening sometime recently, but it's a great one. Gets me pumped. So the workout here is a workout I chose because some of the stuff that Brian was talking about, we talked about at the training center out there, is implemented here. But it is in most of the workouts. But I thought this was a good one. So the start is just to get them in the water and flowing. I have gone more and more to probably shorter and shorter warm-ups. I used to do a lot longer of a warm-up, but I found that it was almost like a waste of time, and they could just get to whatever we were going to get to a little quicker. So this is about as long as I go for let's say a warm-up, but just 500 skids. And then go right from that into free swim with the snorkels and paddles, just get in a groove, and then doing some breaststroke. The intervals there, 8 minutes, doesn't matter to me. They're just going to go straight from one to the next to the next. I just put it on there to budget my time. And then, so once we're in and we're moving there, we'll go right to the first set, and that's right here. It's a 50 fly drilling single double B is how we word it, and that is a single arm and then a double arm and then the other single and then the double, and then 25 kick, and then we do fly drill again, and this time the drill is actually specific to this workout, which is something that I do a lot. I don't first of all, I don't drill a lot really ever for technique per se. I just do it for variation. So this drill, 3-3-3, they're going to go 3 right arm, 3 left arm, 3 both arm. And I say finish on a full stroke, which means you're going to go 3 right, 3 left. And on that third full stroke is when you want to hit the wall exactly on the wall. So for a lot of kids, they can barely do a dolphin kick. Like they got to push off the wall and go straight to 3-3-3. Otherwise, they're going to be hitting the wall before they've even finished 3-3-3. And then for other kids, they've got a dolphin kick out past 8 meters and do 3-3-3 to do it right. So it's like they have to think through that before they even leave the wall if they're going to hit it. And normally, like on the first round, there's a lot more mistakes than what might happen in the second round. Anyways, then we go fly kick on the other side and then fly drill 2-2-2. And it's the same thing there. So now it's 2 right, 2 left, 2 both. And again, they have to finish exactly on that final 2. And so there, it's less strokes total. So they're all going to go a little further off the wall than they did on the 3-3-3, let's say. And they want to, make that adjustment and hit it dead on. And then you go fly, kick on your back. And then you do a 50 fly. And this 6-6, 7-7, I think it was Bob Gillett, actually, when he was here a while back, who was into this stuff. He was into fish kicking and this thing with doing a number of kicks and a number of strokes. And I really like it. And it follows that same theme of the other ones where you're going to go 6 kicks and 6 strokes. And then I put or 7 kicks and 7 strokes. Some of the kids have a little bit less distance per stroke. And I don't want where I might let a kid like over kick and freestyle to lower his stroke count. I don't want someone to lower their stroke count artificially in butterfly because that's just going to be gliding and that's not going to be great for the fly. So I'd let them take that extra strokes and go 7-7. So that's that set. We go through 4 rounds of it. And it's just really all about dialing in very carefully with the skills and doing those very, very intentionally. It's easy for me to see who's not paying attention because they'll finish not on a full stroke, or they'll finish on a single arm stroke when it's supposed to be finishing on like the third stroke full stroke, or that second stroke full stroke. So you can just quickly see a kid who's not paying attention because of how tight those parameters are on what I'm asking for, and that helps me, get them going, and it helps them think that I can see everything, and then they pay attention better. So you go from there into the 1000 breaststroke, and that just has a little bit of variation to it, where you go in a 25, 3 up, 3 down, 3 strokes underwater, 3 strokes in the surface, and then a 75 swim. And the purpose for that breaststroke in this particular workout is actually to serve as some spacing between the next round of butterfly work that we do. So I'm trying to do a little bit of technique breaststroke, but the real technique of the day is actually fly. And so this 18 minutes serves as enough time of not swimming fly to hopefully forget a little bit of what they did before, so that they can then be able to remember it. And that act of remembering hopefully is what gets them a little more engaged. And then they go to that fly set there, 10 rounds, 50 fly kick on your side, and then 50 fly swim. And I'm just saying, go 8 meters off all the walls for that whole set, the kicks and the swims. And when you do the fly swim, I say 1 up, 1 down. That just means breathing, take a breath, and then don't take a breath. Do that for the 50 fly there. And it's on 50. They don't have to go a time. I'm not saying go a certain effort either. I'm really just watching their strokes and giving feedback based on what I see, their rhythm, their timing, their ability to finish on a full stroke, their ability to break out smooth. And so that's all just technique. And if you could scroll down there a little bit further. So then we go back to breaststroke again. And again, this is one more break from breast, from fly. And it is also a skill work set, though. We're not trying to get much training out of it. We're going 1050s this is a neat set that I do this one fairly frequently. I really like this idea. It's a 50 breaststroke where you are going, when I say higher strokes per lap, you're going to go, let's say 7 strokes per lap. And then the next 50 breaststroke, you're going to go less strokes than that. So now down to maybe 6 strokes per lap or 5 strokes per lap. And then it just alternates back and forth. So then the third 50 is higher again, go up a stroke per lap, and the next ones go down. And I don't care if they jump up by 3 and go down by 1, or they jump up by 1 and go down by 3, as long as they follow that pattern of changing their strokes per lap. That's what I'm after. So they have to be able to consciously have some control over their distance per stroke, and then doing that with the parachute makes it also a little bit different, and gives them some extra feel and some variation that they're maybe not used to. So next 50, because I wouldn't normally do it with a parachute. The parachute's actually different than normal. I would probably do it without a parachute. And then 1050s, where now they're not varying their strokes per lap. They're going to keep their strokes per lap. So it's the same DPS, but they're going to vary their speed. So the first 10 was varying distance per stroke. The second is varying the actual speed and effort. So they're going to go a 50. They're going to go a 50. Let's say they go a 50 breaststroke in 33 seconds at 7 strokes per lap. Well, then they need to go 7 strokes per lap again on the next 50, but with a different time. And so they'll go faster. Now they'll go 7 strokes at 30 seconds. So just a set like that, I believe, creates a lot of mastery over their strokes and how they want to swim it. And so you finish there, and then you go to the 825s that are off the blocks. And they're not off the blocks for speed. They're really off the blocks to just integrate the distance per stroke, the finishing on a full stroke, the control over their fly from the setting that it will actually take place in, which is off the block. And so we go off the block there, and then we'll come from a push on the way back with breaststroke. And I put on there 12 meters, 10 meters, and that's because my goal was, to have most people targeting a 12-meter breakout. So they'll be breaking out right at 12 meters off the block, and then going past 10 meters on the breaststroke on the way back. And then we'll just do a quick warm down. And again, I probably I'm straying away from the warm downs as well. I do less and less warm downs these days, and so it's all just meat right in the middle, shorter warm ups, shorter warm downs, and that's the workout.
So John, when you guys are going through this, there's really, I think, only one or two maybe intensity instructions in that workout. A lot of that stuff was specific to stroke count or underwater distance off of the walls. Is that something normal for you guys throughout your program, or do you have days where maybe this isn't like we're going to go at this intensity today and then less intense, more stroke count focused on another day?
Yeah, no, great question. I think I cover a lot of the. So just so you know, when I write my workouts, I'm really writing them just for myself. I don't post the workouts to the kid. Like the kids can see the workout, and I'll leave it on the desk, and they can come when they look at it. But I don't put it behind every lane. So I don't worry about wording my workouts super well, right, when I write them, just because I know so that 3 minutes you see after every set that's me talking to the kids and saying the next set and the expectations that I have. So if I want them to go hard the whole time, I'll probably tell them in that 3 minutes, be like, hey guys, this next set, we're going to be at 90% effort here, and this is what we're doing. But it's a whole nother thing we could get into. But I have become really interested in a guy Steven Sellers, who's done a lot of this research, and then the Matt Fitzgerald, who wrote a book called 80-20, and it's about, I think the subtitle is train slower to race faster. But he talks a lot about going the 80% of your workouts are at a lower intensity and 20% are extremely high. And that being the optimal way for endurance athletes to train and to grow, because
that goes along with that New Zealand marathon runner Lilliard or whatever his name is. Wasn't that his run longer, slower to run faster?
It's exactly the same thing. It's exactly the same thing. And so this guy, Dr. Steven Sellers, he's been basically realizing and putting out a lot of really good research out there. But he's been showing that most of the world's best endurance athletes, whether they intentionally or not, have been training that way. They're not running their marathon pace multiple times per week. They're doing that one time per week. The rest of the time they're running at very slow paces for 3 hours straight. They're doing these workouts.
Yeah, and I definitely have read some stuff about more about Lilliard than I have about obviously this guy. But do you feel like that's applicable to 11 to 14-year-olds, or do you think that the physiology, the differences in physiology, and the recovery rates and breakdown and all of that, like I don't feel like going slow a lot is going to be beneficial for those younger kids. I think we need to be going fast, and that's just my personal opinion. And I think that's an age thing as much as it is. I think when you break them down, I think there's something to be said for the physical breakdown if you're going hard all the time, especially if you're a 45-year-old marathon runner or something like that. If you're a 14-year-old boy swimming, can I really break you down enough to where you need to be going 80-20?
Yeah. Well, I think you brought up two great points there, and I think that for a 14 under, you're not physiologically, when I talk about like my thoughts on 80-20, I don't know that it's as much the physiological part as it is for technique. And I do agree though with what you said that, you could hammer them, but you're probably not going to get them broken down too much. You want to avoid like creating that stress response in their system from that intense workout and then going hard the next day. And I think that's something that I've changed a little bit over the years, where I'm more cautious about like crushing them multiple days in a row, just because if you look at the way that the human body actually gains from that crushing workout, is by needing to recover. Like it has to rest to gain from that workout that you crushed them on. So if you crush them multiple days in a row and create that stress response, you're really not getting a lot of bang for your buck, because it's the body's perceiving it almost as the same session of just all crushed, right? And then you'll recover at some point.
But isn't that why you go from your aerobic day where you're going 80 to 90% with 3 to 5 seconds rest versus your threshold day where you're going 100% with 20 to 40 seconds rest? I mean, isn't that changing up the dynamic enough physiologically to where the body has a chance to recover, and mentally the athlete has a chance to recover, because they're being asked to do different things, and physiologically they're being asked to do different things?
I don't know. I will say one thing. I first of all, I don't know any answer for certain. But I would agree with you that I don't really know for certain. It's just an observation that I've had, and I'm working on it still. I don't know how to integrate a lot of rest into the workouts, because like, how do you go? It's just hard to go easy every day. But I think that what you're saying is right, and there's certainly there's nothing wrong with that. The other thing I was going to say though is that you also have to go easy on a tech. For me, I go easy on a technique day because I don't want to go to the point of breakdown. Like I don't want the kids on like that fly set there, for example. I don't want to like work on good fly, smooth fly, all this good fly, and then suddenly give them 12 100s fly on 120, and then have their fly just go to crap, because obviously they're not going to swim 1200 fly, well. So then it's like, okay, so like some good fly guys, we're all going to work on good fly, and now let me just make you, by the parameters of the set, have to swim bad fly. So that's where I try to do the fly work in a very gentle environment where I know they're swimming it well, and then I want to rest their brains, let that motor skill work set in before we come back and go hard on it. Because yes, when you go hard, they are going to break down, and that's a reality. But at least they've had some chance to sleep on it and to solidify some of that technique work before just grinding it down again, and then sleeping on that ground down technique work from what they did at the end there. So
I think part of it is like what Matir said a few weeks ago on the show. It all starts with, you have to have a plan, and you have to have an idea of what you're going to do with your athletes routinely, and going in there, and the idea of crushing them 6 days in a week, depending on how many workouts you have. For me, I think the one thing I just try to monitor is, what does it look like? I mean, like a coach, in my opinion, if you're worth your salt, you should be able to look at your athletes in the middle of a practice and be able to say, that's not how that stroke should look. That's not how that kid looks too tired, and he's swimming really bad technique on fly. Like, John, if you're running that fly set and you have a kid that's falling apart on that and doing something categorically wrong, I'm not talking about he's fatigued, so he's having to continue to work hard on it. But if you're seeing those things and the kid is completely broken down to the point of where everything's falling apart, you should stop it, right? And try to fix the thing that is wrong, so that you can move forward with progressing with good stroke technique and getting better.
I'm going to jump in here. I think it depends on the time of the season, and I think it depends on where you're at. I mean, like right now, we're 3.5 weeks out of championship meet, last chance to make tags, and 5.5, 6.5, whatever it is, out of tags. I'm perfectly fine with seeing some real crappy, tired swimming right now, because we need to be beat up, we need to be tired, and we need to be banged up. If we're not banged up right now, what are we going to rest off of, and what does it matter? So I'm willing to give up a little bit of that side of it, because when we do start to rest, we can fine tune a lot of things, we can fix a lot of things, and when the body position comes back, we're going to be where we need to be. I mean, I don't think it's got to be perfect all the time. I mean, to me, I'm perfectly fine with it being a little ugly. We were pretty ugly yesterday, and that's okay because we're 3.5 weeks out. So I don't know. What do you think, John?
No, I'm with you. I'm smiling because I one thing I've noticed about when we talked a long time ago, talking now, and when I listen to you talking these things, like you do a lot of stuff pretty different than me, but I'd have confidence putting my kid in your program and having him swim for you. I think you understand what you're doing. I think you're doing it right. But I do agree that I'm fine with the kid swimming bad too. At the time and the place, it all depends. It all depends on where you are in your season and what your goal is for the workout. But I don't know that you're going to teach kids how to be tough or teach kids or create the engine in those kids without going to breakdown, pushing to the breakdown, right? So I think we just have to realize we're going to go to breakdown fairly frequently, honestly, in my age group kids, because like I said, I don't know that I could create a lot of engine there without going that deep, but there is a time and place for it.
All right, so John, take us through kind of how you plan your season and what the flow of a week or a couple weeks or a month even looks like for you. What's your kind of philosophy on training, or what are you big on right now?
Yeah, well, it's funny because I watched that show, whatever that was, 3 weeks ago, and where he said, like you have to have a plan, like that's essential. And it's funny because I do not have a master plan that I follow very carefully. I have my general overview of the championship target meets that we're going to be, going for, and I know what it looks like to get us ready for that. But I don't have like one of those sheets where it's like macro cycle, micro cycle, and week 1, week 2, week 3, like week 4. Like I just don't have a lot of that. Like I said, I kind of have it in my mind. And I've also gotten away from the idea that it takes all this time to get in shape. I really believe that if you're working with an athlete who has some capacity, it doesn't take them months and months to get in shape. I'm just ballparking. I don't know, but I'll say like 1 month probably. If you work a kid hard, who is already an athlete and already has some capacity, in 1 month you could probably have that kid close to their peak shape, and then after that you can begin to build on their full capacity. But I don't know that I need to spend the time I used to think that I had to spend to like get a kid all the way, up. So I can spend. I guess I say that because it makes me feel like I can spend more time on technique and skill development with the kids than trying to get them ready for a taper meet by spending 2 or 3 months working hard. But for me, the season is kind of dictated by the championship meets. I think my big overview is that I value long course more than I do short course. I think I consider that a great long course season is the goal, and a great long course season will lay the foundation for a great short course season. I know that I have some colleagues who are different than me. Like they're the opposite. It's like, oh, you got to have a great short course season so that you can do well at long course, and that's fine. And I guess it might be whatever. Which came first, chicken or the egg? There's no real answer there that people argue over. But I do think that how you sell it to the kids matters, and how I do it matters. So in my mind, I think long course is more important. The long course season is the most important season to do everything, and that's just how I view it and sell it. So that does come into play with a lot of the training that I'm gonna visualize and try to set up. And then that's it. I mean, I write every workout carefully and well in advance with a specific goal in mind. I do know what the next workouts will be roughly, but I'm not afraid to change the workout while it's actually happening, or to even change the week's plan or that right away if I see something that I don't like. So I think that helps me to not get. I used to do like week 1, week 2, and day 1, day 2 inside everything. I made huge models and charts to plan everything out. But then I felt like I was just like a slave to that chart, and I felt like I was like violating, like I thought that I was like ruining the season when I would stray from that chart. And so it was like, well, I'm learning new things every single day. It's like, and what if I make this whole plan and then 3 weeks in I learn something new and I want to change my plan off of it. So then I was like, you know what, I'm not winging it is not the right word. I'm not just winging it, but I am doing it that way.
Yeah, I'm very similar. My kids are always like, "What are we doing tomorrow?" I'm like, "I don't know. We'll see how the day goes."
Exactly.
And they're like, "What do you mean?" I said, I'm not. I write every practice an hour before practice, whether it's a 5:30 practice in the morning or it's a 4:30 practice in the afternoon. I write it 1 to 2 hours before that practice because I want to know the mindset I'm in. I want to know where we were the day before. I want to think through what it is we need to be doing that day. And I mean, it's not to say I'm not thinking about it, because I'll spend 24 hours thinking about what we're going to do the next practice, but I don't put it on commit until 2 hours before the workout. And the kids know that. So it's funny because they get on commit and they know if they get on at noon, they know it's not going to be there. And they'll get on at 2:30. If they get on at 3:30 and it's not there and it's a 4:30 practice, they're like, "Come on, coach, what's going on here? Like, what you dropping the ball, man? It's supposed to be up there." And
are you guys stuck to that once you put it on commit, or is that the workout you're doing?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I may overwrite the practice on occasion, to where it's a 7,000-yard workout. I know pretty much in the back of my mind we're only going to go 6,400, and we're going to figure out how to edit out some of that stuff. And usually it's take a round off the main set or something like that. Like, hey guys, if we really go on this 5th round, we're not going to do the 6th round.
Knowing that you don't have enough time anyway.
Yeah, usually we don't have enough time to finish it anyhow, so it isn't going to matter. So it's just basically a bait. But they kind of know that too. I mean, now they've figured it out and started looking at it. So now they're like, "Hey, coach, each round's 14 and a half minutes, and we've got 8 minutes left. What's going on here?" So, but I mean, I definitely play with that, but I don't. I'm kind of like you, John. I mean, I do season plan. I know what I want to do. The biggest planning that I do starts right now, going into championship meets, because I want to make sure that I've got all my kids that are going to the right meets, preparing for the right meets for them. And when we've got 4 different meets that we're resting for at the end of the season, I feel like I have to put down on paper a specific plan for each kid going into each one of those meets. Not each kid, but for each meet. And then the kids fall into whatever category. And I try to make it to where I can keep them together as much as I can and break them out as I need to, or get them out early. You may do 5 rounds, you may do 4 rounds, you may do 2 rounds, depending on whether you're 3 weeks out, 2 weeks out, or 1 week out. I do a lot of that. So that's kind of how I look at it. But I'm kind of like you. I don't spend a ton of time on my microcycles, my macrocycles in the season. That kind of just ebbs and flows for me at this point. I don't really.
I think right now too, we got to realize we're talking age group swimmers. Their attendance and the things that happen in their lives may not be as predictable as sitting down at the beginning of August. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what's going on right now, I think that everybody's kind of operating with what's able to show up in the water right now, and make sure that we're able to coach those guys and make decisions based on that. John, one of the things that we wanted to talk to you about is, you had mentioned principles in motor learning, what for you and teaching those skills. So will you take us kind of through what your ideas are on that?
Yeah, I will go through it as briefly as I can, because there's a lot to it.
Give us the edited version. Don't give us the
long cliff notes. Cliff notes.
Well, yeah, and if it's probably interesting, we can go further into it at some point. But but I think that I'm not an expert in anything, but I'm certainly not a physiology guy. I don't, I think I don't really care as much about what energy system we're in or how much lactate they're producing. And mostly I'm working with age group kids anyways, and the 14 unders. And I just don't know that is as important as teaching them physically how to swim, So it's like, you've got these monster athletes out there, like pick someone from the NBA who is muscular and fit and athletic. It's like throw them in the water and our 10 unders will probably beat them in a 100. It's like, what is that athlete not as tall? No, they're way taller. Are they not as strong? No, they're way stronger. Are they not as athletic? No, they're way more athletic. It's like they just don't know how to swim. They don't have the technique to move themselves up. It's like that Shaq versus Phelps thing. You watch Shaquille O'Neal basically drowning, for his lap there, right? And he's a giant. So technique is obviously really, really important. And our job as a age group coach is to understand how the mind works and takes in new skills. And a lot of it, and Michael is the one that, really, I think awakened me to this whole idea. It was something that he's very passionate about. Still is. Michael Brooks, yeah. And he still is, and he's very passionate about it, and he probably knows more about it as it relates to swimming than anyone out there probably. But a lot of the principles are fairly counterintuitive. And so I'll dive into that first one right away. Like, so there's principles to motor learning. There's a lot of nerds out there who are working on these things, and a lot of it is just simple, like, clicking a button or moving a ball 3 inches and measuring, the time for that. So there's not a lot of good data on actual, like, complex, big movements. It's just hard to do in the lab. But if we take something like random, and we talked about this, Brian, in Colorado, but random versus blocked training. So the blocked training is, in an example in swimming, would be just doing the same skill over and over again. So you're doing 20-25s freestyle swim, and you're doing free over and over and over again. And that will make your kids, whether it's freestyle or you're doing a drill, okay, or something, some skill, in the workout, your kids will do better than if you were doing something very random. Like, actually, my workout that I gave, I guess, an example where it's like, for the first time ever, I'm asking them to do the drill 2-2-2 and finish on a second stroke. It's like they're going to make mistakes. They're definitely going to make mistakes. And then by switching from fly, from that to fly kick, and then back to that to a different drill, and then back, it's like I could have set it up where we do 650s of that 2-2-2 drill in a row, and then 650s of the next drill in a row, and 650s. And in that workout session that day, they would have looked a lot better than my kids looked that day by that 650, because they would have been doing the same skill 6 times in a row. But the question is, what does the research show as far as what will they look like 3 days from now? And there, it really is pretty clear, without a lot of argument, that random practice will look better. That it has a bigger, let's say, neurological imprint on them, where when you're doing it in that randomized format, and so they'll actually retain their skill and move that skill into a future workout better. So that retaining is where random versus block training comes in. Now there's also like variable versus constant, and that's the kind of practice exemplified in that breaststroke set, where they are swimming breaststroke over and over again. So it's 10-50s breaststroke, breast over every time. But now they're varying a skill. So now they're going, one is, one stroke per lap, now the other is another stroke per lap, and back and forth. So that is the same stroke over and over again, but you're asking for variation versus just saying 10-50s breaststroke working on distance per stroke, and now 10-50s breaststroke working on time, right? So you're linking them back and forth. So those will have an impact on their ability to retain information. And then I'll just quickly throw out an example of one that will have an impact, I think, on what they're on how much they're going to gain, like what they actually. So you could retain a bad skill too. You could do a good job doing stuff that retains a bad skill. So the other thing I think I'll mention is
I have plenty of kids that do that.
Same. So the other thing I think I'll mention is like whole versus part training. Like, is it better to do drills? And actually, I think Steve talked about that too. He talked about drills, although he did say he didn't do a lot of drills. And is it better to do a lot of drills to get someone better at a stroke, or is it better just to do the stroke? And there, similarly, it's pretty clear that you will get better at whatever it is that you do. And so if you do single arm butterfly a lot, then you'll be good at single arm butterfly. And not necessarily, it should not be the assumption of a coach that just because someone's good at single arm butterfly that they're going to be good at actually swimming butterfly full stroke or fingertip drag. It's like, it shouldn't be the assumption that just because they drag their fingertips across the water that they have a relaxed recovery or a smooth high elbow recovery or any of those things. It's like, and actually, Brian, you mentioned it in that show, where you were like, a lot of kids, you can spot kids that drill a lot because they look robotic and mechanical. And I think that's a perfect example of what's called negative transfer. So for everything you do, there's positive and negative transfer. A positive transfer means that you do an exercise, a skill set, or a drill, and then the actual skill you want to be improved is positively impacted by it. Whereas negative transfer is you do a skill and the result is it inhibits future performance. So if you have a kid swim for 2 years taking 22 strokes per lap, that is negative transfer because eventually that workout is going to make it more and more difficult for him to go lower strokes per lap because he has all that practice with a higher stroke count. So actually, a little bit of rambling there. I'm sorry, but I guess what I'm saying is with that idea of whole versus part, it's another thing that I don't know that we think about, that the research has actually been done and is still going on and really says that you're getting a lot more bang for your buck if you just have the kids swim freestyle well than if you try all these drills every day, drill. It's like,
I don't know, but I mean, so the term dynamic swimming, isn't that what it is, Tyler? Isn't we've had it brought up a handful of times on here? Nick, I know Nick Graves talked about it a little bit. He kind of gave credit to Michael Brooks for sort of coining that term. I don't know that he did, but that's pretty much the way that I look at how we do things. I mean, we want to come in and practice swimming the way that we're going to swim. And we don't spend a lot of time doing a lot of other crap. It's just not what we do. We want to get better at swimming, and that's sort of the approach. And on this show, like I said, the term dynamic swimming came up, and it was kind of giving credit back to York Y and to Michael Brooks. I mean, is that something that you guys talk about?
It's funny that the term dynamic swimming is not actually one that on that phrase that I'm familiar with what they're referring to. But
was it dynamic swimming, Tyler? Is that what it was? I don't even remember. I know Nick talked about it.
I think it was the variable nature. I think it was just varying in what you're doing and not being repetitive in there. If I'm correct, I think Nick was talking about maybe taking us through his workout where he was going from a short axis stroke to something long axis to be able to clear out what they were working on the short axis and come back to it and do it a second round. And then he did it at the end of the workout again. But he may have said dynamic too. He may have.
Yeah.
about how it was more about just doing the stroke the right way rather than doing the drills part of it all, and that's kind of what I'm getting at. I just, to me, if you're going to learn how to swim, you should probably learn how to swim, I mean, that's kind of the way I look at it.
That's deep thoughts about Brian Welter right there.
That is a classic Brian Welter. Going back to your block training versus, random versus variable thing. I listened to your talk up there at the Age Group Summit, and I thought it was very interesting, and I liked a lot of it because I did a lot of that stuff already. So it's kind of an affirmation of what I was already doing. So therefore, obviously you and I were right. So that made me happy. But I got back here and I had a kid move into my group, and very, very talented, very, very talented kid, and was really struggling paying attention to my workouts and understanding what was going on. And after talking to her parents and spending a little bit of time with her, figured out that 40-75s on 120 is a lot better set than 2 100s, 375s, 450s, 825s, the same amount of rounds for the same amount of volume, because she didn't have to think about it at all. So when we actually went back to block learning, she was able to focus much more on her skill development rather than having to think about the practice, just because of some of the learning things in her brain and the way she works. And so this is, you and I talked a little bit yesterday when I asked you to come on the show, and so I've had to go back to more block learning and figuring out how to incorporate block learning back into my practice and get the kids on track. And I will tell you, ZZ Top. Can't go one show without a ZZ Top joke. But I will tell you that having done so much variable and so much random just all over the place, when you do go back to block, it's pretty interesting to see how the kids perform, because I played with it in the last about month, and it's been really, really good. We have had some amazing practices, just cranking, just repeat 75s, repeat 100s, whatever it is, so it's kind of interesting. I just want to throw that at you, because I definitely did play with the idea.
John, kind of building on the idea of the variable versus block, is that something you encourage your downline age group coaches to work on in practice, or are they more traditional and block with your younger kids and don't add the variable workouts in until they're 11 to 14? Because I've always found with 10 and unders, not repetition of drill after drill after drill, but repetition of, like Brian said, you have to swim to learn how to swim. I've always found that with those 10 and unders especially, it allows them to begin developing those muscle memory and those patterns of behavior that we're trying to get them to do. Is that something you do with your downline coaches, or do you kind of do it different?
Totally. So I do. And that is a really good question, because it gets to the heart of all this. And I think that I'm talking to all my coaches about it, and I want them to be using these principles. The talk actually that I gave there, Brian, was on contextual interference. Okay. And I used random and block in that talk, but contextual interference, CI, as you'll see it a lot abbreviated, is the amount of noise that you put into these skill sets. And so what they've also shown is that if you have people with low level skills, then you want low level contextual interference. So for your 10 and unders, especially if they're not good, like highly skilled swimmers, then you really want them to be doing a lot of blocked training. It should be mostly blocked, because that's how they're going to build the skill. But what happens is, if they are doing a good job and you're doing a good job coaching, then they grow in skill pretty quickly, because 10 unders are sponges, and they're turned to 11-12s. And if your 11-12s are actually growing in skill, I mean, it depends. You could have a giant 11-12 and they could be a quad A swimmer, right? But let's say you have a average size swimmer with great strokes and they're a quad A swimmer. Well, then you doing a bunch of block stuff with them is really not pushing them to the next level of adaptation, because it's so easy for them that they're just able to scoot through without using a lot of brain power and a lot of focus. And they'll quickly learn that, and they'll start to turn their brain off and not think. And then over time, that'll actually become a habit where they're just total brain off swimmers. And then you wonder why they don't apply the things you're asking them to focus on. It's because they've been trained over the years just to turn their minds off and go. And there's a time and place for turn your mind off, but that's a whole other thing. But I think that yes, the 10-unders, if they're a really skilled group of 10-unders, then you could do a little bit of randomized training and sprinkle that in there. But for the most part, our 10-unders, they're doing a lot of mostly blocked learning, because they just have to learn the skills to begin with.
So I'm gonna hit you with another thing that I got out of your talk from up there. Talk to me about you and Michael's approach to relay starts and kind of how you guys prepped for that Y Nationals, where you guys won every single relay that was ever imaginable.
Yeah. So I don't know if they're one off the relay exchanges, but it certainly didn't hurt. But I think that what you're referring to is something that it does match all into this. If you're trying to get good at a relay exchange, then you want to be good at a relay exchange, not at Tyler going off of Ben exchange. So a lot of teams, especially when I coached, in far years past, younger years, before a championship meet, it was like build the relay, and then just the relay, practice with just the relays. Like you've got to know your breaststroker, you're the butterflyer. You've got to know exactly how to finish, and I think that's a mistake, because first of all, it implies that in the meet itself, everything is going to go perfect, and Tyler is going to come into the wall exactly as he's always done and give you that finish. And that might not even happen either. He might have a mistake and come in a different way. So the whole idea, like being predicated on like, we're going to practice just the relay swimmers with each other because we want them to know how that person finishes. Well, that person might not even finish in the major meet the way that they practice all the time. Anyway, so with that in mind, what we try and do is to when we're doing relay starts work, constantly change not only who is going off of who inside the lanes that they're used to, but switching them from lane to lane also. So if there are 4 kids in lane 1 and they're going in and going out on each other, and we're doing it for 10 minutes, that means the 4 kids in lane 1 are going to spend 10 minutes of just those kids back and forth. So what we'll do is we'll move a kid from lane 1 into lane 3 and a kid from lane 3 into lane 2. And then they'll have not only variation between the kids starts that they're coming off of in their own lane, but other kids are going to come in, different gender. You'll have a boy going off a girl. And so that it's like, if you can do a start really well off of anyone, then I feel really confident that in a championship meet, you're going to do a good start. But if you can do a start really well off of just one person in one specific stroke, I'm not so confident it's going to happen every time in that meet.
And I'll jump in here. Since I listened to him talk about this, whatever that was what, 2 years ago now, right? Yeah. So when I listened to him talk about this, we brought this back and we did this. We incorporated it. We changed up our relays. I don't ever put my relays together the way they're going to be swum at meets, hardly anyways, just because we have 3 different sites, and putting all those kids together in the same pool is almost impossible anyways. But based on what he was talking about, I was like, guys, we don't need to learn how to do a relay start off of that person or off of that person or off of that person. We need to learn how to do a relay start. Let's learn how to do the skill. And we put it into practice, and we're pretty good at them. And it's given us a and it changes things up in practice. I mean, we do 50s where we do, a 12 and a half, a turn, and then a finish. And the finish will be a relay takeoff for the next person. And, we'll do that on 20 seconds. Each part of that is on 20 seconds, and we'll just go 10 minutes, 15 minutes, maybe something like that. And so they don't have any idea who's coming in next. And they can tell them to do whatever stroke they want. I don't care. And I'll just randomly, like John said, move kids from lane to lane. Hey, well, now I don't because I got to COVID trace everything. But I used to move kids randomly from lane to lane. But I think that's a unique that was something else I picked up from his talk up there, and I've really put it into practice, and I think it's helped us a lot.
John, we got a few minutes left before we got to sign off here today. I know you got a meet coming that you probably want to get out there and actually watch some kids swim. So before we get into the last questions or so, just want to say thanks to you for coming on and taking some time out of your Sunday to join us, and thanks to Commit Swimming for being a sponsor for us again. Coaches out there, if you guys are interested, check out commitswimming.com, get a free trial. John's been using Commit for a while, and I know we spoke about it in pre-production. John, tell us what your experience has been with Commit.
I love Commit. I can't speak highly enough about it. We talked before about it, and I think they have got the best algorithms now that are out there for swimming, and I think it's made my world a lot easier. Just with tracking my own workouts and having it saved in one easy place. The app makes it super simple. I know I'm sounding like a commercial right now, but no, I can't speak highly enough. I was skeptical in the beginning, and really sold on it.
I think it's great because, Brian, this is something you and I have talked about before. I think there's a lot of coaches out there that think they do a lot of stuff in practice different than what they actually do until they start writing the workouts down, and that algorithm says you're doing 75 to 80% of your practice is freestyle, and you never work on breaststroke in practice. You do a lot of backstroke and freestyle, and then
By the way, I went and looked. 52%. That's where I'm at this season. 52% freestyle.
I'm
Bet you
right
I'm
at
on
60.
the low side.
But yeah, I think it's great for that feature and being able to tell you what they are. I know they're experimenting with results and season planning and all that stuff. So some good stuff that they're working on. But we just appreciate those guys supporting us. And then John, thanks for doing the same, support and coming on the show this week. Brian, you got anything before we sign off, bud?
Not really. I mean, next week we got Megan coming on talking about her new digs up there at Swim Mac, see how that's going. And appreciate John coming on. I always like talking about the science and the learning, and I think he does a real good job of staying on top of that stuff. So we appreciate you, John. Glad to be in touch with you. It's been a while since you and I touched base, so it's good to catch up again. And thanks for coming on, man.
It has been. It's been fantastic, and I love this show. I think I saw it through the friendly workout exchange. That's where I first saw it. But I mean, I'm not a every week watcher, but I will tune it on from time to time, and it's I think one of your little whatever advertises like that's the only age group focused one, and I think it is. Most of them are not. Most of them are falling into the more pro or college type mentality. So it's pretty exciting what you guys do.
Thanks, man. We appreciate that. And John, if you're up for it, we'll have to have you come back on and dive deeper into motor learning and skill acclimation for kids at the age group level.
Yeah, totally.
All right, guys. Thanks everybody. We got Megan next week. We'll see you guys in a week. Take care.